You've been lied to. Not by a person, not by some random article you read online, but by that little machine sitting in your cupboard. The one you pull out once a month when you remember, wrap that cuff around your arm, and hold your breath waiting for two numbers to appear. You've been told your whole life that both numbers matter equally, that they are a team, that if one is high, you're in danger, and if both are high, well, God help you. What if I told you that after a certain age, that rule completely flips upside down? What if I told you that for decades, doctors have been focusing on the wrong number when it comes to keeping you alive after 60? Let me ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly. When was the last time you looked at your blood pressure reading and actually knew what you were looking at? Not just saw the numbers and thought, okay, one is high, one is low, I'll just take my pill. I mean, truly understood which one of those two numbers is silently plotting against you while you sleep. You see, there's this massive misunderstanding that has been baked into our culture. We grow up thinking blood pressure is just one thing: push and pull, squeeze and release. But the older you get, the more your body starts playing by a completely different set of rules. And the scary part? Most people don't find out they've been reading the wrong rule book until it's too late. Until something dramatic happens. Until they're lying in a hospital bed with a nurse looking at a monitor and whispering words that sound like a foreign language. I'm going to show you exactly which number is the real killer after 60. But more importantly, I'm going to tell you why the other number might actually be the only thing keeping you alive. And before this video ends, I'm going to share something with you that your doctor probably assumes you already know. Something that, if you get it wrong, could make every single medication you're taking completely useless. But here's where it gets personal. Think about someone you know, a friend, a family member, maybe even yourself. Someone who has been walking around with that slightly high number for years. The one the doctor said was nothing to worry about, just keep an eye on it. Now imagine that person wakes up tomorrow and realizes they've been monitoring the wrong thing for the last 10 years. Imagine the frustration, the anger, the feeling of wasted time. That's not going to be you, because today we are doing something different. We are not just going to look at a chart. We are not going to read some boring medical definition that puts you to sleep. We are going to reverse engineer the entire way you think about your own heartbeat. By the time we are done here, you are going to understand something that most people will go their entire lives without ever figuring out. You are going to see those two numbers on the screen, and instead of feeling confused or anxious, you are going to know exactly what your body is telling you. And that piece of knowledge, that one shift in understanding, is going to change the way you see every single health decision you make from this moment forward. So let me ask you the question that started all of this. The one that scares most people when they finally hear the answer. Between the top number and the bottom number, which one actually matters more once you cross the line into your 60s? Because I promise you, whatever answer just popped into your head, whatever instinct you just felt, there is a 90% chance you are wrong. And in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly why being wrong about this one thing could be the most dangerous mistake you never knew you were making. You ready? Because we are not waiting any longer. Let's settle this right now. Let me take you back to something. Think about the last time you went to the doctor. You sat in that cold room with the paper on the table that crinkles every time you move. The nurse came in, wrapped that cuff around your arm, and you sat there in silence while the machine did its thing. Then came the moment, that little beep. The numbers appeared on the screen, 120/80. Or maybe 140/90, or maybe something higher. And then the nurse looked at you, smiled, and said, "Looks good," or "We need to keep an eye on that." And you walked out of that office with a piece of paper in your hand, or a note in your phone, and you thought you had the answer. But here's the truth that nobody told you in that room. Those two numbers, the one on top and the one on the bottom, they are not teammates. They are not working together toward the same goal. They are actually telling you two completely different stories about what is happening inside your body. And if you treat them like they are the same, you are going to miss the story that actually matters. So let's start with the top number, the systolic. That is the pressure when your heart beats, when it squeezes and pushes blood out into your body. That number is like the engine of a car revving up. It is the moment of effort, the moment of action. And for most of your life, that number has been the one everyone focused on. If it was high, they told you to cut salt. If it was high, they handed you a prescription. If it was high, they made you feel like you needed to fix it immediately. But here is where everything flips. Here is where the rule book changes the moment you cross over into your 60s. The top number starts to behave differently. It becomes less reliable. It becomes more influenced by things that have nothing to do with your actual heart health. Stress, anxiety, a bad night of sleep, a cup of coffee you had 3 hours ago. That top number becomes a drama queen. It reacts to everything. It jumps up and down based on the mood of the day. And because of that, it starts to lose its power as a predictor of what really matters. Now the bottom number, the diastolic. This is the one nobody talks about. This is the quiet one sitting in the corner of the room while everyone is yelling about the top number. The diastolic is the pressure in your arteries when your heart rests, when it relaxes between beats. And this number, this quiet, ignored, underrated number, is the one that starts to tell the real story after 60. Here is why. When you are young, your arteries are like new rubber bands. They are flexible, they stretch, they bounce back. Your bottom number stays strong because your vessels know how to relax. But as you age, something happens. Those arteries start to stiffen. They lose that elasticity. They become more like old rubber bands that have been sitting in a drawer for 20 years. They still stretch a little, but they don't bounce back the way they used to. And when your arteries cannot relax properly between beats, that bottom number starts to do something dangerous. It starts to creep up. But not in the loud, obvious way the top number does. It creeps up silently, slowly, while you are sleeping, while you are sitting on the couch, while you are doing nothing at all. And that silent creep is the thing that most people miss until it is too late. Let me give you an example that will stick with you. Imagine you have two rivers. One river is wild and fast. It rushes over rocks. It splashes. It makes noise. That is your top number. You can see it. You can hear it. You know when it is out of control. But the second river is deep. It is slow. It moves underneath the surface where nobody is looking. And that river, the quiet one, is the one that slowly erodes the banks over years and years until one day the ground just gives way. That quiet river is your bottom number after 60. And the reason most people are walking around with a false sense of security is because their doctor told them your top number is a little high, but your bottom number looks great, so you are fine. Or worse, your bottom number is a little high, but your top number is normal, so do not worry about it. They have been trained to look at the two numbers like they are a pair. Like if one is okay, the whole picture is okay. And that is the mistake that costs people their independence, their mobility, their future. Because here is what the research shows. Here is what the data that your doctor read in medical school actually says when you look past the surface. After the age of 60, the bottom number becomes the single strongest predictor of something most people never see coming. And when I tell you what that something is, you are going to understand why that quiet number sitting at the bottom of the screen deserves a lot more of your attention than you have ever given it. But before I get there, I need you to understand something else. Something that is going to make you rethink every conversation you have ever had about your blood pressure. Because it is not just about which number matters more. It is about why the medical system has been telling you to focus on the wrong one for so long. And that reason, the real reason behind the confusion, might surprise you more than anything I have said so far. So now you know the secret that most people never figure out. The top number screams for attention. The bottom number whispers. And after 60, the whisper is the one you need to fear. But knowing which number matters is only half the battle, because here is where it gets truly dangerous. Here is where even the people who know about the bottom number still get it wrong. You see, for decades, the medical world operated under a very clear assumption. High blood pressure is bad. Lower is better. Get that number down, whatever it takes. And that assumption made sense when they were looking at young people, when they were looking at middle-aged people. But somewhere along the way, they forgot to update the rulebook for the generation that actually needs the most protection. Let me tell you about something that happened in the research world that most patients never hear about. There was a massive study, one of the largest ever done on blood pressure in older adults. And the researchers were looking at thousands of people over the age of 60. They were tracking their top numbers, their bottom numbers, and what happened to them over time. And they expected to find what everyone expected. Lower bottom number equals better outcomes. That was the rule. That was the gospel. But when the data came back, something strange happened. Something that made the researchers stop and double-check their numbers. The people with the lowest bottom numbers were not the healthiest. In fact, in many cases, they were doing worse. They were falling more. They were having more issues with memory. They were ending up in the hospital more often. And the researchers sat there looking at the data thinking, this cannot be right. Lower is supposed to be better. That is what we have been telling everyone for 30 years. But the data did not lie. And what they discovered changed everything about how we need to think about blood pressure after 60. Because here is the truth that nobody puts on those little charts in the doctor's office. After a certain age, the bottom number is not just about how relaxed your arteries are. It is about how much blood is actually reaching your brain. It is about how much oxygen is making it to your heart. It is about whether your vital organs are being fed while you sleep. Think about your brain for a second. Your brain is the most demanding organ in your body. It needs a constant, steady supply of blood, not just when your heart is pumping, but in between, during the rests, during the moments of quiet. And the only way your brain gets that steady supply is if your bottom number stays in a very specific zone, too high, and you are putting pressure on those delicate vessels in your head, too low, and you are starving your brain of the fuel it needs to keep you sharp, keep you steady on your feet, keep you remembering the names of the people you love. And this is where the medical system, with all its good intentions, has been leading people into a trap. Because when a doctor sees a bottom number that is a little high, what do? They add another medication, they increase the dose, they push that number down. And on paper, it looks like success. The number dropped. The patient is now in the normal range. Everyone celebrates, until a few months later when that same patient starts feeling dizzy when they stand up, when they start having trouble finding the right words, when they take a fall that never would have happened before, and the doctor looks at the chart and says, "Your blood pressure is perfect. Keep doing what you are doing." Meanwhile, that patient is living in a body that is being pushed into a danger zone that nobody is even looking for. Because they are so focused on the top number or so focused on just getting the bottom number down that they forgot to ask the most important question. Down to what? For whom? And at what cost? Let me give you a number that will shock you. There is a bottom number that most doctors look at and say, that is beautiful, that is ideal, that is exactly where we want you. And for a 30-year-old, they would be right. But for someone over 60, that same beautiful number can actually be a warning sign. A sign that the pressure keeping blood flowing to your brain is getting too low. A sign that the next time you stand up too fast, you might not make it to the kitchen without holding onto the wall. And here is the part that breaks my heart when I think about it. There are millions of people right now who are taking medication every single day to push their bottom number down into a range that is actually dangerous for their age. They are doing exactly what the doctor said. They are being the perfect patient, and they are walking around with a false sense of security, believing that because their numbers look good on paper, they are safe. When in reality, they have traded one risk for another risk that nobody warned them about. So what is the real number? What is the bottom number that actually keeps you safe after 60? Not the one that looks good on a chart. Not the one that makes your doctor nod at the screen. the one that actually protects your brain, protects your heart, and keeps you standing on your own 2 feet for decades to come. I am going to give you that number, but before I do, I need to show you something even more important, because knowing the number is useless if you do not know when to measure it. And that is where almost everyone makes the second biggest mistake. You see, most people check their blood pressure at the wrong time of day. They do it in the morning after coffee. They do it in the afternoon when they are stressed. They do it in the evening when they are exhausted. And then they look at that number and make decisions about their medication based on a snapshot that has almost nothing to do with what is happening in their body when it actually matters. When you are sleeping, when your heart is resting, when that bottom number is doing its most important work, there is a window of time, a very specific window, that tells you more about your true risk than any other reading you could possibly take. And if you are not measuring in that window, you are essentially flying blind. You are making decisions about your health based on incomplete information. And in the next part, I am going to show you exactly when to check, exactly what to look for, and exactly what to do if your numbers are not where they need to be. Because this is not about getting your numbers lower. This is about getting your numbers right. And those two things are not the same. So now you know the danger of chasing numbers down without knowing where the safe zone actually is. But let me take you deeper. Because the timing piece I mentioned at the end of the last section, that window of measurement, is where the real magic happens. And it is also where most people, including some doctors, get it completely backwards. Think about how you sleep. When you lay your head down at night, your body is supposed to do something beautiful. Your heart rate drops, your blood pressure drops, your entire system goes into a state of repair. This is called dipping. And for most of your life, your body did this automatically. You would go to sleep with a certain blood pressure, and by the time you hit the deepest part of your sleep cycle, that bottom number would drop by 10 to 20%. It would give your arteries a break. It would let your brain rest. It would allow your heart to recover from the work it did all day. But here's what happens to so many people after 60. That dip starts to disappear. The bottom number stops dropping at night. Or worse, it starts doing the opposite. It starts climbing while you sleep. And if you are only checking your blood pressure during the day, when you are awake and moving and drinking coffee and dealing with life, you will never know this is happening. You will look at your daytime numbers and think everything is fine. Meanwhile, your body is going through something completely different while you are unconscious. This is called non-dipping. And if your bottom number is not dropping the way it should at night, you are carrying a risk that most people never even know they have. Because that nighttime bottom number, the one nobody measures, is actually a better predictor of what is coming for you than any daytime reading you will ever take. And the research on this is so clear that it is almost scary. People whose bottom number stays high at night or climbs at night have a dramatically higher risk of the things nobody wants to talk about. And they walk around completely unaware because their daytime numbers look acceptable. So let me give you the timing. When should you check your bottom number to know if you are truly safe? Not in the morning when you first wake up, because that number is often artificially elevated by something called the morning surge. Not after a meal, because digestion changes everything. Not after exercise, because that tells you nothing about your resting state. The window that matters is right before you go to sleep. And again, if you really want to know the truth, in the middle of the night. I know that sounds extreme. I know nobody wants to wake themselves up to check their blood pressure. But if you have risk factors, if you have been told your numbers are borderline, if you have a family history of anything that scares you, knowing what your bottom number does while you sleep is the single most valuable piece of information you can have. Now let me give you the number. The bottom number that actually keeps you safe after 60. And I want you to listen to this carefully, because this is where the guidelines and the reality separate. The medical guidelines will tell you that a bottom number under 80 is ideal. Under 70 is even better. And for a young person, they are right. But for someone over 60, the sweet spot, the range where your brain gets enough blood but your arteries are not under too much pressure, is between 70 and 80. And here is the part that will shock you. For some people over 75, especially those who have had any issues with dizziness or falls, a bottom number between 70 and 85 may actually be safer than trying to push it lower. Because remember what we talked about. That bottom number is the pressure that pushes blood into your brain when your heart is resting. If you push it too low, you are not protecting your brain. You are starving it. And the symptoms of a brain that is being starved of blood look very different from the symptoms of high blood pressure. They look like forgetfulness. They look like unsteadiness. They look like that moment when you stand up and the room spins for a second. They look like fatigue that you cannot explain. And too many people accept these things as just part of getting older. They think, well, I am 65 now. Of course I am a little dizzy when I stand up. Of course I forget things sometimes. Of course I do not have the energy I used to. And they never make the connection that the medication they are taking to protect themselves might actually be causing these exact symptoms. Let me tell you about someone. A man I knew, 72 years old, sharp as a tack, still working, still driving, still living independently. His doctor saw his bottom number was 82 and said, "Let us get that down a little." Added a small dose of a second medication. The number dropped to 74. "Perfect," the doctor said. Textbook. Within 3 months, that man had 2 falls. Nothing broken, thank God. But the third fall, he broke his hip. And anyone who works with older adults will tell you, a broken hip at 72 is not just a broken bone. It is the beginning of a cascade. He lost his independence. He lost his confidence. He went from being the guy who drove himself everywhere to being the guy who needed help getting to the bathroom. And it all started because someone looked at a number on a screen and decided to push it down without asking the most important question. What is this number doing for you at night? Now, I am not telling you to stop your medication. I am not telling you to ignore your doctor. What I am telling you is that you need to be the one asking the questions. You need to be the one who knows what your bottom number is doing when you sleep. You need to be the one who understands that the range that is safe for a 50-year-old is not necessarily safe for you. And you need to be the one who brings that knowledge into the room when you sit across from your doctor. Because here's the truth that nobody tells you in that cold exam room with the paper on the table. Your doctor sees you for 15 minutes. They look at a chart. They look at a number. They make a decision based on guidelines that were written for an average person who does not exist. But you live in your body 24 hours a day. You feel the dizziness. You notice the forgetfulness. You know when something changed. And the moment you understand the difference between chasing a number and finding your number, the moment you stop treating your blood pressure like a target and start treating it like a conversation with your body, everything changes. So what do you do with this information? How do you find out if your bottom number is dropping at night? How do you know if you are in that safe zone or if you have been pushed too low? And what do you say to your doctor when you walk in with numbers that do not match the standard guidelines? Because I promise you, the conversation you are about to have with your doctor is not the conversation you think it is. And in the next part, I am going to give you the exact words to say, the exact questions to ask, and the exact way to advocate for yourself without sounding like you read something on the internet and got confused. Because this is your life, this is your brain, this is your future, and you deserve to be the one in control of it. So now you have the knowledge. You know which number actually matters after 60. You know the range that keeps your brain fed and your heart safe. You know that the timing of your measurement, especially what happens while you sleep, tells you more than any daytime reading ever could. But knowing all of this is useless if you cannot do anything with it. And that brings us to the part where most people freeze. The conversation with the doctor. Let me paint a picture for you. You walk into the office. You have been thinking about everything we have talked about. You are ready. You are prepared. The nurse takes your blood pressure. 135/78. The doctor walks in, looks at the chart, and says, "Your blood pressure looks good. Bottom number is 78. That is a little higher than I would like. We might need to think about adjusting your medication." And just like that, everything you prepared goes out the window. You nod, you say okay. You leave with a new prescription and a feeling in your gut that something is not right, but you do not have the words to explain it. That moment right there is where the system wins. Not because the doctor is bad, not because the doctor does not care, but because the system is built on numbers, not on conversations. And if you do not bring the conversation to the table, you will always be treated like a number. So let me give you the exact words to say, the exact questions to ask, the exact way to stand in that room and be heard without sounding like you are arguing with someone who spent 12 years in medical school. The first thing you say is this: "Doctor, I have been tracking my blood pressure at home and I want to show you something." Right there, you have established that you are not just a passive patient. You are someone who is engaged, someone who is paying attention, and that changes the entire dynamic of the conversation. You are not coming in with something you read on the internet. You are coming in with data from your own body, from your own home, from your own life. Then you say this: "I have been checking my bottom number right before bed, and I am curious about what it should be doing while I sleep. Should it be dropping at night? And if so, how much?" Watch what happens when you ask that question, because you are not just asking about a number. You are asking about physiology. You are asking about the dip. And any doctor who stays current on the research will know exactly what you are talking about. They will know that the nighttime dip is one of the most important predictors of cardiovascular health in older adults. And they will know that you are not just another patient. You are someone who understands what actually matters. Now here is where you take it a step further. If your doctor starts talking about pushing your bottom number down below 70, you say this: "I understand that the guidelines say lower is better, but I am over 60, and I have been reading about the risks of going too low, the dizziness, the falls, the impact on cognitive function. Can we talk about what the right target is for me specifically, not just for the average person?" You are not rejecting their advice. You are asking for personalized medicine. You are asking to be treated as an individual, not a statistic. And any good doctor will respect that. But let me tell you something that might surprise you. Many doctors, especially primary care physicians, are working with guidelines that are updated every few years. And those guidelines are often based on studies that excluded people over 75. Did you catch that? Some of the most widely used blood pressure guidelines in the world are based on research that literally did not include the population that needs the most protection. So when your doctor tells you to get your bottom number under 70, they may be applying a standard that was never designed for you in the first place. This is not about blaming doctors. This is about understanding that the system is flawed, and you are the only one who can advocate for yourself inside that system. Your doctor sees dozens of patients a day. They are managing diabetes, cholesterol, thyroid issues, arthritis, and 100 other things. They do not have time to sit with you for an hour and unpack the nuance of systolic versus diastolic pressure after 60. That is not their fault. That is the system. But you have the time. You have the motivation. You have the reason to care more about your numbers than anyone else ever will. So here is what you do. You get a home monitor, a good one, not the cheapest one on the shelf. You take it with you to your next appointment and have them check it against the office monitor to make sure it is accurate. Then you start tracking. Not once a month, not when you remember. You track at the same time every day. Morning before coffee, evening before dinner, and most importantly, right before bed. You keep a log, you write down the numbers. And if you really want to know the truth, you set an alarm for 2 a.m. once or twice and check it then. I know that sounds extreme, but if you have risk factors, if you have been on medication for years, if you have ever felt that dizziness or that fog that nobody can explain, that one reading in the middle of the night will tell you more than 100 daytime readings ever could. And when you walk into that office with a log of your numbers, with data from your own body, with questions about your nighttime dip, You are no longer just a patient. You are a partner. You are someone who is actively participating in their own care. And that changes everything, because now your doctor is not just looking at a chart, they are looking at you. They are seeing someone who cares enough to do the work, and that shifts the conversation from, here is what the guidelines say, to here is what we should do for you. But here is the part that most people never get to, the part that separates the people who just survive from the people who thrive, because the conversation with your doctor is just the beginning. What you do outside that office, in your daily life, in your habits, in your routines, is actually more powerful than any medication. And there are things you can do starting today that will change your bottom number more than any pill ever could. Things that have nothing to do with salt. Things that have nothing to do with the advice everyone has been giving you for years. Things that work specifically for the way your body has changed after 60. And in the final part, I am going to show you exactly what those things are. I am going to give you the practical steps, the lifestyle shifts, the morning routine that protects your bottom number, the evening routine that helps your body dip the way it is supposed to at night, and the one thing you should never do if you want to keep your bottom number in that safe zone. Because knowledge without action is just trivia, and you did not come here for trivia. You came here to change the way you live. And that is exactly what we are about to do. You have made it to the end, and if you are still here, that tells me something about you. It tells me you are not the kind of person who just watches a video and moves on. You are the kind of person who wants to understand, who wants to take control, who wants to walk out of this with something that actually changes the way you live. And that is exactly what I am going to give you right now. Everything we have talked about, the systolic versus the diastolic, the nighttime dip, the danger of pushing your bottom number too low, the conversation with your doctor, none of it matters if you do not have a plan. So let me give you the plan, the practical steps, the things you can do starting tonight that will protect that bottom number and keep it exactly where it needs to be for your age. Let us start with the morning. The moment you open your eyes, your body is coming out of sleep. Your blood pressure is at its lowest point of the day, and then it starts to rise. That is normal. That is the morning surge. But what you do in those first 30 minutes can either smooth that surge out or send it spiking. So here is rule number 1. Do not jump out of bed. I know that sounds simple, but the number of people who throw their legs over the side of the bed the second the alarm goes off is staggering. When you stand up that fast, your body has to work overtime to get blood to your brain. And if your bottom number is already on the lower side, that sudden movement can drop it even further, leaving you dizzy before you have even taken a step. So here is what you do instead. You wake up. You sit on the edge of the bed for 30 seconds. You stretch your neck. You take 3 deep breaths, and then you stand. That 30 seconds costs you nothing, but it gives your cardiovascular system the time it needs to adjust. Next, water. Before coffee, before tea, before anything else, you drink a full glass of water. Overnight, your body has gone hours without fluid. You are dehydrated. And dehydration is one of the fastest ways to mess with your bottom number. When you are dehydrated, your blood volume drops, your heart has to work harder, and that bottom number starts to behave erratically. 1 glass of water, first thing, changes everything. Coffee can wait. Tea can wait. Water first. Now let us talk about movement. You do not need to run a marathon. You do not need to go to a gym. What you need is consistent, steady movement throughout the day that keeps your blood flowing without spiking your pressure. The worst thing you can do for your bottom number after 60 is sit for hours at a time. When you sit for long periods, your blood pools in your legs. Your heart has to push harder, and that bottom number starts to creep up without you even noticing. So here's the rule. Every hour, you stand up. You walk for 2 minutes. You stretch your legs. That is it. That simple habit, done consistently, has been shown to have a bigger impact on blood pressure than some medications, and it costs you nothing. Now let us get to the evening. This is where most people make the mistake that ruins their nighttime dip. You see, that dip we talked about, the drop in your bottom number while you sleep, is controlled by something called your parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest system. And there is one thing that absolutely destroys that system at night: alcohol. Even one drink, especially as you get older. Alcohol relaxes you in the moment, makes you feel like you are winding down, but what it actually does is flood your system with stress hormones a few hours later. Your heart rate goes up, your blood pressure goes up, and that beautiful nighttime dip that is supposed to protect your brain turns into a spike that you never even know happened. So if you want to protect your bottom number, if you want to give your arteries the rest they need, alcohol is not your friend, not at night. And here is something else that will surprise you. The position you sleep in matters. Sleeping on your back is the worst position for blood pressure in older adults. It can compress certain vessels. It can interfere with the way your body regulates pressure during sleep. The best position is on your side, preferably your left side. Sleeping on your left side takes pressure off your largest vein and allows your heart to pump more efficiently. It is a small change, but the research on this is clear. Side sleeping, left side sleeping, improves that nighttime dip and protects your bottom number while you rest. Now let me give you the food piece. And this is not the salt advice you have heard a million times. Salt matters, yes, but there is something that matters more after 60: potassium. Most people are deficient in potassium without even knowing it, and potassium is the mineral that helps your arteries relax. It is the mineral that allows that bottom number to drop the way it is supposed to at night. You can get it from bananas, from sweet potatoes, from spinach, from avocados. These are not exotic foods. These are things you can add to your plate today. And when you balance your potassium with your sodium, your bottom number starts to behave differently. It starts to find its natural range without you having to fight it. And here is the one thing you should never do. Never, ever stop your blood pressure medication without talking to your doctor. I have to say that because there is always someone who watches a video like this and decides to take matters into their own hands. Do not do that. The information I have given you is about understanding your numbers, tracking them, and having better conversations with your doctor. It is not about going rogue. If you are on medication, stay on it. Track your numbers, see what they are doing at night, and then bring that information to your doctor and have the conversation we talked about. Together, you and your doctor can decide if your medication needs to be adjusted, but you do it together, not alone. So here is where you are now. You know more about blood pressure after 60 than 90% of the people walking around. You know which number actually matters. You know what it should be doing while you sleep. You know the questions to ask your doctor, and you have a plan, a real plan. Morning water, 30 seconds on the edge of the bed, movement every hour, no alcohol at night, sleep on your side, add potassium to your plate. These are not complicated things. They are simple. And simple things done consistently change everything. If this video gave you something you did not have before, if it made you think differently about those two numbers on the screen, if it gave you the tools to protect yourself in a way you never had before, then I need you to do something for me. Not for me, actually. For the person in your life who does not know this yet. For your brother who has been chasing the wrong number for years. For your neighbor who is dizzy every morning but thinks it is just age. For your friend who is on 3 medications and still does not know what his bottom number does at night. They need this information, and you are the one who can give it to them. So hit that subscribe button right now. Not because I asked you to, because you want to be here when the next piece of this puzzle drops, because you want to stay ahead, because you are not the kind of person who settles for what the system gives you. You are the kind of person who digs deeper, who asks the questions, who takes control. And that is exactly who this channel is for. Tap the like button if this video gave you something valuable. Let me know that you were here. Let me know that you are one of the ones who gets it. And share this video with someone you care about. Send it to them right now, before you do anything else. Because the information in this video, the difference between the top number and the bottom number after 60, could be the thing that keeps them standing, that keeps them sharp, that keeps them independent for years longer than they would have been otherwise. You have done the work. You have stayed with me through the whole thing, And now you are walking away with something most people will never have. The truth about what is actually happening inside your body while you sleep. The power to protect yourself. And the knowledge to advocate for yourself in a system that does not always have your best interests at heart. That is not nothing. That is everything. So take the plan. Start tonight. Drink your water. Sleep on your side. Track your numbers. Have the conversation. And I will see you in the next video where we are going to go even deeper into the things your doctor assumes you know, but probably never told you. Until then, take care of yourself, because nobody else is going to do it for you.